It should come as no secret that using case studies as a builder is the quickest way to build certainty in the minds of prospective clients. Like this allows you to build trust, inspire, and have more chance of getting the projects that you love. The problem a lot of builders face, though, is they don't know if their clients are willing to help and they don't know how to ask them about it. So, in this video, I talk about how to ask your clients so that you can tap into the power of using case study stories in your market. What's up, guys? Welcome back to another Light and Lines video. I'm Ben Greaves, and if we haven't met before, I'm an architectural filmmaker and photographer, and I also work closely with builders in the building industry with their marketing content and content strategies. Because many builders, they struggle to build trust with their ideal clients and they're seen as just another builder. I created a 5-step marketing plan for building companies to help you stand out so you can repeatedly land clients and projects that you actually want. So, with that being said, let's get into it and move on to today's video. So I get a lot of builders when they finish a project, they want to capture it somehow because they've been on this project for 6, 12, or maybe even 18 months or longer, and they just want to be able to remember it somehow. They don't get these other builders that they want to do a case study because they want to advertise their business doing it. But I think a big problem that stops a lot of builders is they don't know how to ask their clients because they kind of feel like they're intruding, and that's it. Like a lot of time when builders come on board with me and I'll start talking about case study stories, the first question that comes back is, well, what's the best way of approaching a client? Because I think that sometimes people feel like they've just done this big service with this client and now they've moved in. Like they don't really want to be intruding into their lives. They feel like the client's paid them all this money and then therefore like that value transaction, it's finished. So to ask them now for a case study, it's asking something extra. So I think like that's what I'd love to explore in today's video. But I guess before we go in further, like as a builder, I think the question is like, why should you even look at doing case studies? Like, why should you invest your time and money in doing that? And also, like, why should you be asking clients? Because, like, let's be real, like, this isn't just a quick and easy thing. Like, sometimes these films take multiple days and multiple visits filming with that client. So there's got to be some reason why, right? Like, why do you think? Like, I mean, it comes down to human psychology in how we follow similar people to ourselves. And it's like instant validation. So, when we're making a purchase decision as humans, we kind of look to others who are similar to ourselves, whether it's family, friends, peers, people around you, that play an influence on you. And it's kind of like looking at their example. That's why case studies are such a powerful thing because it's a builder showing what they've done for a client. And if a client talks about it and then other similar people, they can then go, well, hey, like that's me. I can relate to that type of person. That's who I am. That's what I want. And I think it also depends on the size of the purchase, right? If it's a $3 can of Coke or $2 whatever, like you don't need that much validation because, you could just buy it, try it. And if you don't like it, like you've lost $2, right? There's not there's not too much risk to it. But if I select someone to renovate my home or build a new home, like that certainty level, it needs to go as high as possible because like that's a multi-million dollar investment in a lot of cases. So I think that's probably why a lot of builders invest in case studies. But I guess a good example is like if you take your wife or your family on a holiday, right? So I mean, if you're anything like me and my wife, like you don't just fly blindly into another country and see what happens. Like we want to kind of like book the whole week out because we're going to have limited time in this new place and we're most likely never coming back. So we really want to make the most of it. And it's kind of like, we'll be booking restaurants and things to do in our downtime. So it's, where do I go? Where do I eat? And so what we've done is like with restaurants and places to stay, we kind of try and, we make it easy, number one. And number two is kind of like, get a nice spot. And so with restaurants, a lot of the times when we're booking it, and, it's also with like Airbnbs and so on, is looking at the reviews. So it's kind of like looking at Google reviews or what people have said about it. And most times, when I'm comparing, if I'm going through it, I'm just thinking from my side, like sometimes I'll see someone with like 6 reviews and they'll be like 4 to 5 stars out of 5. And then there's people with like 300 reviews, 4 to 5 stars. And straight away, I'm like, my mind goes, yeah, that's the place. I'm going with that place because it's got more reviews. And you're just like, man, look at this. Like, why do they have more reviews? Now, I think there's probably 2 reasons that come up in my mind. Like, one is they probably ask their customers for it, and probably the most important one is they deliver a really good product and a really good experience. So then people want to review that. And it's the law of reciprocity. Like that's 100% what it is. And that's kind of where, coming back to the builder side of things is having those reviews, but it's kind of in case studies and it's in story form that will emotionally connect. Because I just don't think a Google review cuts it, and like makes a start for a job of that size. For builders, I mean, like there's a lot going on here. There's people are investing X amount of money with you, and anywhere from a couple of 100,000 to a couple of $1 million. So that purchase decision, like it's a conscious decision. You can't just rely on a few words on Google. Like you need something deeper than that. So I think that's probably why case studies are so popular amongst the builders that I work with and why they love doing it. So coming back to the question of how builders sometimes go, well, how do I approach it? How do I ask my client that I've just built for the last year and I've built them this dream home for them? Like, how do I actually approach it? But I think before you kind of go into that, like that question, it's got to take a step back for a moment and go, well, let's just wait a sec. Because before we ask that, the question that we're going to ask is like, well, who do we ask? Yeah, like what client? Because you might have built for a couple of clients in that year. So how would you explain it? Like how would you sort of dissect that? Well, like I think a lot of builders, they'll call me up, for example, like a client will call me up and they'll say, hey, got this project coming up and I want to do a case study on the project. And the first thing I'd say to them is, well, is this your ideal client? Like, do they represent that ideal client in some way? And if it's just that, someone's completely different to your normal target market, you might just want to relook at the whole thing. Like, why are we doing this video? Is it more to showcase the project? But if it's that ideal type of client, then yeah, you want to focus on the person. Like the project's definitely important, but it's more so like how this fits in with the client. Because I think it's kind of like, when you're looking at that situation, it's kind of going, who's the hero in that story? And sometimes it'll be the project. It's like your dream project and it's the biggest project that you've ever done. But sometimes it's not the project at all. And you're like, man, this project, like it's not anything like I want to put out there. It might not be the right style of build or something, and it might not exactly be the right size that you want to put out there because you might be aiming for like, your 800,000 or $1 million new homes, for example, but now you've gone and done like a 400 or 500 grand project, for example, and vice versa as well. Because yeah, I mean, I've got a lot of clients that have gone up to like a higher end project bracket and they've said, they found themselves like their business was better suited to that mid range. So it's almost like you do get that luxury project and go, well, am I going to get more of them? Do I want to get more of them? What do I need to show? Or do I just focus on that mid range and show and tell that story, right? And every build's different. And that's kind of like the cool thing. It doesn't mean because you're building a $1 million home that that's going to be the best thing. The best thing could be 100, 200, or 300 grand. It depends on your business model. But coming back to that thing of going, okay, cool. Well, when I'm selecting what client to do this on, like, yeah, if the project's not that amazing, but you go, you know what? The people that I worked with, they were just like such nice people to work with. I really enjoyed working with them, but also they were like the top people that you want to get in the future, then it's a go. That's where, well, that's where the hero lies in that story. We don't necessarily have to do the case study on the project so much, but it's on the experience in that story from that client. And I mean, you do still show the project and the finished project, and maybe a little bit of the build, but I think there's too much emphasis on the build amongst builders, especially right now. I mean, everyone, and I mean everyone, is showing the build and showing the work, and it's all the same. Like, there's nothing there to really grab that ideal client's attention for them to really connect with you. And it's just a lot of the time some ADD type of content that really says nothing. So a lot of my clients, they'll say, I need to build, like, this is the part of the build, I want to capture and show how busy it is and all that kind of stuff, which, like, I think is good to some degree. But I think at the end of the day, the client story is the most important. The finished home is just a byproduct. It's the transformation in their life that's important. Secondly, is the finished project, because, like, that's where they're going to live. Like, they're not going to be living in a building site. So showing the building site, like, I've got to ask, like, why do we show that? And I do personally show that, and I film a lot of that, but that's a different video for a completely different reason. So yeah, like, what kind of clients do you ask? So, well, I think this is definitely someone where, you've felt like you've solved the problem for them, like that their lives are better off because of you and because of what you were able to help them with. So it's looking at those clients and going, did they have some sort of desire before they came to us? And then was there a problem that stopped that desire? So it might be the family's growing. So their desire is, a nice family home. They don't want to move. So they want to renovate their existing home. So now we're sitting with a problem, like, now there's an extra kid or two kids and there's not enough space. So that's the problem. And it causes a lot of other problems as well. If you're going to ask your clients why, like, you get the five whys, then you'll get to the root problems. Like, oh, now it's like, the people, they're all yelling at each other. We're tripping over each other all the time. There's not enough room. So you can come in as a builder and extend their home, and you can fix that problem of it being too small. And that actually solves a lot of other problems too. And I think those case studies are the most powerful, because these people, you've genuinely helped them with their life. And I think there's a lot of power in that, rather than just showing the project. Like, we get it. It's nice. It's going to look nice. If you've used new stuff, if it's modern, it's going to be visually appealing. Like, it's pretty hard to build a bad looking home, but I see a lot of other builders that I don't help, and all they put out is product, 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 right? And there's nothing deeper for people to really emotionally connect with, or resonate with. And it's like Apple or any other really good company. If they just show the product all the time, people won't care. And it's the stories that they buy into. So, on that topic, how do people make buying decisions? And, what really makes them act and do something? Well, I mean, look, that's a really, like, deep topic, but I think, just to stay on track with this particular topic, the one reason is people don't like to take big risks. So they'll look at others that have done it before, and they'll say, like, they were able to get what they want. Like, maybe it was a renovation or an extension or a new home from this builder. Like, if they could get what they want, then maybe I can too. So they want that validation, and that is priceless. I mean, you can invest a large sum of money into doing a case study, and it'll just always give you a return, because it's always going to be there. you know you help those clients, and it's a moment in time that you've captured, and you've captured it well, and it's video that keeps giving back. You spend the money once, and over time it's going to make you far more money than it cost you to create. So yeah, I mean, look, here's one thing that comes up a lot. Like, what would I say to a builder that's maybe, like, book solid ahead of time? The pipeline for the next 2 years is strong. They just keep getting people, like, referring people through, and it's just everything's looking great, and everything's going great for them. Why would someone like that still need or require case studies to validate? Because I know that's one thing, right? Like, you might be booked out and everything, and you've got all this pipeline ahead of you, and you've always got clients coming in. But let's, like, ignore for the moment that 2 years in the pipeline, like, it's really just two projects. And if one of those falls over, then, like, you're hinging on one. But from my experience, from what I've found, is when you've got that, but you've got case studies, and those clients that have already booked with you, like, they might already be signed up, that, or you might have already started to build. When they watch these similar other stories, it gives them even more confidence on that journey, yeah? And it just allows them to trust you even more. Because one of the big problems is, a client spending a million bucks or 500 grand or whatever it is, is being able to trust. Like I said before, it's being able to trust the other side. And the more that you can increase that trust over time, the better. Yeah. And it's not just about getting more projects. It's the whole, I mean, look at this. I have a lot of catch-ups with my builders because, I see them so regularly. And one pet peeve that they hate is when clients come on site unannounced. But you've got to ask the question, like, why do they do that? Why do they want to come on site? It's because they want to make sure that everything's in line with what they want at the end of the day. They want to make sure that the process and their project's progressing. And what that means is there's a certain level of distrust there. If they 100% undoubtedly trusted you, they wouldn't for a moment feel the need to just show up unannounced. So that's kind of like what I'm saying, right? So case studies will, hopefully help with situations like that because if that person goes, okay, well, if the client you're building for watches one of your case studies and the case study shows, what the builder's done, surely that should make the person, the client, more at ease, right? So at the end of the day, how do you ask a client? I think the biggest thing is to look at the people that you've built for in the last couple of years and go, okay, maybe people who said thanks to you, whether it's been through like a gift or a review, whether it's been Facebook or Google, Instagram, whatever, or maybe just another way where they've said to you over the phone, like, thank you so much, Mark, for building and creating this dream home for us. But then sometimes like you might not have that client. You might have a client in mind that's like, man, this client would be fantastic for a case study. Like they fit the picture, but they haven't really like said thanks or they haven't really been over the moon about it. And a lot of times builders are like, yeah, I don't want to ask them because they didn't seem like they were super into it for whatever reason. Sometimes it can come back to their personality. It can come back to them as a person. Maybe they're like so thankful inside, but they don't know how to express it to you as the builder. And what I've found in the past is every time we've got a situation like that and the builder goes and asks that client, they'll come back and they'll be like, yeah, like, no worries. I want to do this. This is awesome. Like, I'd love to be a part of it. And it turns out to be like such a good story as well. There's been honestly, like maybe out of 100%, it's been like 2% that maybe you'll have 2% that says no. And the only reason why is whether they're very private people or they're people, they can't be out there, for business or public or whatever reasons, it always seems to work out. And you can ask yourself, but why? Like, why would they say yes to you when they've already paid you all this money? Like the big thing is, like, you've just built in their dream family home, or it's a little renovation or whatever. Let's not forget about the whole spectrum. You've just done this big job for them, and for them, like as human beings, when someone does something for you, it's just how we are. We want to give something back. It's reciprocity. And sometimes, yeah, that's through the money exchange that happens, but sometimes it's just like they want to be able to pay you back in a way that's not financial, yeah, but they don't know how. And when you come in and you ask them this question, like, hey, when we were talking about how to capture this project, the idea of a client case study came up, and it's something I've always loved the idea of. And when we thought about that, we thought of you first off because we were like, man, we'd love to help you. We'd love to tell a story on this whole relationship that we've had. And, that we thought about you, that from that client, it feels really special too, because they feel like, they're one of the chosen few. They're one of the special ones. They're one of the lucky ones. So, you're able to then obviously ask them. And most times people are like, man, I'd love to. I'd love to help out. Yeah, just tell me when, where, how, what. Yep. And obviously, like that's when we come in. And I think that if we ask a builder that's never worked with us before, like what percentage of clients do you think will probably say yes and no? I bet you that they'll say, oh, probably 20% of clients will say yes, the rest won't. But what I've really found is it's more like the other way around. Like I said, like 2 out of 100 will probably say no. Like very rarely. I mean, I can't even really remember when a client has flat out just been told no. And I think that's like a really big thing. But the other thing that I found is when clients go on this journey and they have their stories told in that relationship from their perspective, like they love it because there's another sort of memory that they create in the story of this, this journey that they just had building their dream home or building their dream renovation. And it's something that they can keep and show the kids and show the family. And it's just another conversation and another memento at the end of the day. And I think, yeah, at the end of the day, like they're going to get a download link as well. So if you're a client and you're listening to this, like, yeah, you could tell them, look, I'm going to give you a download link of this video. And it's almost like a little memory in your part of the story in a way. So, well, sometimes it's the same with me. Like sometimes, I help clients out and we create amazing stories for them and stuff. And then I almost don't get the kind of wow, like I've literally had clients cry when they first watch their stories, especially the case studies and stuff. And I think a big reason for that is that because they put so much work into this business and also the project, and most of the time, like people don't really thank them enough. Like, yeah, I'm sure they're grateful, but a lot of the time it's kind of like, here's the keys, the last invoice is paid, and okay, cool, I'll see you later, enjoy your home. If there's any problems, let me know. Like sometimes they just want to be seen as well and go, oh man, like what a great job. Yeah. So I guess where I'm going with this is like, sometimes I've had clients like that as well, where for me, I'm like, man, I don't know if they were super happy with everything that I did and all that kind of stuff. But well, maybe that just comes from being self-employed and it all coming down to me. Like, I don't know. But then somehow, some are like, I do a case study for them or an interview, and I find out later that, they think it turned out to be like the best case study ever. And it's weird how it works. Like it's almost like it's a bottle up. And then when they're in front of the camera and, and on top of the questioning that happens, it just creates an even better story. Yeah. So it's almost like you want to have a look at the clients that are thankful and all of that. And that will be a great story. But also the ones that you're not really 100% sure of, yeah? Because, yeah, it might surprise you. That might be the best case study that you'll ever find because in their minds, they might be thinking that everybody else is thanking the builder and the builder knows, that they do a great job and they always do and they always have done and they just assume it. So this kind of like gives them the opportunity to talk and to hear their side of the story and their whole experience. But with that, a lot of times clients would be like, they're creating a case study and they're like, oh, look, I've got 10 clients in mind, but I don't know who to do. They think it's only going to be creating like one case study. Whereas, like, if you really look at it, businesses that have a lot of validation, that have a lot of different people talking about it, that percentage of success, it just gets a lot higher. And I definitely say that's important. I mean, I guess again, from a human psychological point of view, you want to make sure that it's not just one client, this builder help, like there's multiple clients. And I think it's definitely like the numbers really do speak a lot, and that's why I encourage them as much as I do. And I do case studies for my own business because I use them in my own sales pipeline and it really helps the business a lot. But then there's a whole other dimension to this thing that when you do case studies, you obviously like you want to focus on your core target market, but then within that core target market, you want to focus on like the different personalities and also the different problems that you've solved. Because that all, those different stories will all speak differently to different people. Okay. So for example, let's say your target market is like professionals or, people that own their own businesses. Okay. I mean, we can go into this whole niche thing and target marketing, and that's a whole other topic. But let's say you help business people. On one hand, you might have a business person that's like a bachelor, they're not married, no kids, nothing. And then on the other side, you've got a business person that's married, they've got a wife, a couple of kids, and it looks completely different, but they're both business people. If you create stories on both of those, the story with the most impact is going to be dependent on who's watching that story. There's not necessarily going to be a better story. It's going to, it's not necessarily going to be the one with the family. It's the one that's from that client's perspective or perspective, the business person married with kids is going to resonate better with that one, and the unmarried person will probably resonate better with that one. That's why you want to cover a lot of different case studies based on your target market, their personalities, what their desire is, and what problems you solve for them. So it's kind of like the holiday example I gave. The last holiday my wife booked, when she was booking it, she was kind of looking at, the Airbnbs, the locations that we're going to stay, and the restaurants, but also going, I think it's another similar thing is to kind of looking at the reviews and how lately those reviews have been done. Because, there's been places that I've seen where they've got a lot of reviews, but the last one was like 2 years ago was the last one. Whereas if you look at them, you're probably going to pay more attention to the places where that last review was like a week ago. So, how regularly you do these definitely comes into play as well, and how much you focus on it. Like I remember back in the day, in the very early days of my business, when I was looking at an accounting software to try and work out, what I wanted to use for invoicing and keeping track of payments and all that stuff. Now, you can imagine that accounting and software like that, they speak numbers. They don't really talk layman's terms. And one thing that I found at the company that I ultimately decided with was they specifically spoke about self employed people and specifically spoke about photographers and creative people. So they kind of like broke it up into different industries. So they kind of had like your financial sector, your legal sector, hospitality, and a creative sector. And I'm essentially a creative marketing person. And straight away, like I went in and I went down that route. And it had photos of people like me, and they looked like me, they talked my language, and they had my desire and my problems as well. And it had a couple of case studies, and I remember they did this really, really well. I mean, the great thing with builders is like, you guys don't have to cover all these different target markets. Like builders are pretty lucky in this respect. But when it came to this software, a lot of different industries can use it. And I remember there were like hospitality, creative, professional, like all these different kinds of verticals and different industries. And then within each vertical, they had multiple different case studies as well. And I watched quite a few of them from all different industries. And while some of those industries, like I didn't really relate to, like I didn't even watch the hospitality ones, if they didn't have a wide range, if they only had ones that I didn't relate to, I probably would have looked around elsewhere and I probably would have gone with someone else. So yeah, the decision making process, like it would have been a lot longer. Now, years later, like I think it's been 7 years, and I'm still using them, and that shows you a lot. But I think a big point here is when you create a case study, you actually help the decision making of a prospective client. Now, I'm not saying that you're going to necessarily get more clients. Like some of these case studies are there to disqualify people as well, and to have some certain people decide not to work with you. But okay, so why would you want to do that? Why would you want to disqualify some people? And I've asked a lot of guys this, and I guess time was a big topic with a lot of builders. They want to eliminate people that are time wasters. I mean, it's not just wasting time, but it's wasting a lot of resources, we're wasting a lot of money, especially when you're doing a quote. Like if you're doing free quotes and all that kind of stuff. Like I know that a lot of builders are moving more towards paid quotes nowadays, but yeah, it's sucking up a lot of resources. And what that means is it's cost a lot of opportunity. So while you're busy with the time wasted here, you could have been spending that time like working on the business or getting a new prospect. So a case study, I believe, should be made in such a way that it doesn't just say how amazing the builder is all the time. That's kind of like the problem with testimonial videos. A testimonial video and a case study video are two very, very different things because if you go and have a look around, like I look at some builders that I don't do their videos, right? And if I go and watch a client story that they present, it's normally in the form of like, oh yeah, ABC company was so amazing. They built a house and like, yeah, we can't thank him enough. And they were on time. And oh, I love the quality and it's so amazing. It's always this like positive stuff about it. And that's okay, but it just doesn't connect. And I think it like kind of does a job, which is awesome, but it doesn't like, look, it's better than nothing. But I think there's a downside to it as well because it doesn't help people. It doesn't help disqualify people. And I think that's a really, really big thing. I think businesses should look more, it's not just about gaining awareness for your business and getting everyone to desire what you have. Like, have something real, have something vulnerable. So, what do I mean by that? So, like these case studies should be, I mean, you should be pretty certain about your particular type of market as a builder. And then that leads you to what type of case studies you create, which means then if someone watches a case study, they go, man, you know what? That's not me. Like that's not me. I'm like in a little unit and I want to renovate the bathroom or the kitchen, but this guy's doing these massive architectural luxury homes and they should disconnect. They should disqualify themselves if that makes sense. Whereas most testimonials, like it's just about the building and how good it was, yeah, and maybe like a little bit of the project. So, okay, what would I say to people who are out there? You're listening to this, and you're considering it, and you're thinking like, how do I take this step? Maybe you're at a point where you've got it in the distance to create these kinds of stories for your business. So, what's something that those guys can take away from today, they can implement, and will kind of, get you rolling on that and get the momentum going forward in regards to these case studies? Well, I think the thing is, maybe like, let's just go write down the last 10 projects that you did, for example, and then look at that. And then, from a business perspective, I mean, you've got a lot of factors that you've got to look at here, but what type of projects that you love, like which ones make the most business sense, what clients, like did you love out of that? And which ones do you want more of? Yeah. And all of that kind of stuff. And then look at like, okay, cool. What are the top three? If I've only got enough cash to invest in one case study at the moment, like that's better than nothing. And if you've got enough to invest in three or four or five, like do that. It's kind of like that, it's going to be there forever. It's like, I know it's a video and it's something digital, but it's a real asset because this asset's going to build certainty in the future and it's going to build certainty with future prospects. It'll qualify the right people and disqualify the wrong people and all that kind of stuff. So it really is like it's building equity in your business in a way. So I guess to sum it all up, and I'm getting to the end here, like what would I say? Getting back to that question of how do you approach your client as a builder? Well, I think, yeah, make your list and all that kind of stuff because then you'll identify which clients like are the ones that you actually want to ask. And then, just have that conversation with them, like, look, I'm getting this video to help us out with these case studies. And it's where we tell the story of how, we've been able to help you build your home, renovate or whatever. And yeah, I'd love for you to be a part of that. Is that something that you'd mind helping me with? And it's really as easy as that. And I mean, they say yes, hopefully. And if they say no, well, look at some of the other clients on that list. And that's something that, you can also, just as you build with clients, you can drop the seed early on in the process. Like, hey, I'd love to do a story with you guys when this build's finished. You guys have got a great story and I'd love to help tell it. And truly, like when the clients of builders that I work with, when their clients go through this journey with me and the whole experience, like they love it. And it just gets everyone together. And I think, yeah, if we can make the whole process fun at the same time, then it's awesome. And it's just another enjoyable experience for them they've had with you as a builder. Now, obviously, there's things, around the video production side of things. I mean, the way I do these things and the way I shoot is obviously very minimal. It doesn't feel like a Hollywood set. It doesn't take too much time. I mean, I've honed this thing in. I've honed in this whole process. So I'm going in and I'm like, hey, look, I'm going to be very respectful of these people and their time that they're giving us. And they're doing you, like my client, a massive favor. So, I'll go in with very light equipment. So what that means is very minimal. It's all about the story and all that kind of stuff. So it doesn't, and that's something that like I've got to prep the client with, I think, as well as like, look, it's, by the way, it's an easy process. We can stop and start and go back. We can make mistakes, take breaks, it should be no more stressful than having a conversation over coffee. We're just going to ask you some questions. We're going to direct you a little bit and all that kind of stuff. There's nothing for you to worry about. So you have to make them feel at ease there. And I think the big thing is like people have this perception of having to act and having to say something perfect and it's lights, camera, action, and you've got to perform and get it right, right? And I think it puts a lot of people off. And the way that we overcome this is it's going, look, number one, we're just having a conversation just like this. And then from that, the editors, they'll do their magic, they'll pull out all the golden nuggets and build that whole story. And then from a visual perspective, like we just do whatever the family normally does. If they love, chilling in the backyard and the kids running around or the dog, playing with the dog, like we just do that. We capture that. And the whole idea is not to stage something and make it seem fake, but make it real. And that's something that other families are going to admire. And they're going to go, you know what? That's what I want as well. And I think that's the important thing to show these lifestyle parts of this case study project too. People that value what your clients value. And that's why it's important to choose your clients, right? Because I've definitely had builders in the past where they do a particular project and it's completely different to all the other projects. But for some reason, they're really excited about it. They want to do a case study on that project, and without asking the question, like, is this my core target market? Is this what I want to pursue? Do I want more of it? And if it is, go for it. But if it's not, just think about it. take a step back. Maybe ask me. Just ask me what I think and if it would make sense from a business perspective to do this. Because, I've done this a few times, but the one thing you want to look at, especially if you're a builder, I mean, again, you're not just selling a $30 product, you're selling something massive here. You need to build a lot of certainty and a lot of trust within your target market. So you have to invest in these case studies. So, guys, that's a wrap from me. Thanks for joining in today. I know this was a bit of a long one. If you haven't already, make sure you subscribe, download my marketing guide for builders. If you haven't already, you can get these videos directly into your inbox or subscribe on YouTube for future videos. I'll see you later.